Aleichem. This week's reading from the Torah is parasha Toldos. We see the underlying theme of the character of both Esau and Jacob, although this is not readily perceived only when we reflect upon circumstances, beginning with their birth. They were twins, and they were struggling inside of her, and Hashem explains to Rebekah that two nations are in your womb, two regimes from your inside shall be separated. And we learn that Jacob will become the next patriarch of what will be Israel, and Esau, his descendants, will be the descendants of Adam. As explained elsewhere, Rome also descended from Edom. And so although it's pointed out by Gur Aryeh that the struggling inside of the womb did not represent the struggle that was influenced by their personal Yetzer Tov and Yetzer Hara, good and evil inclinations, it was more so a cosmic force present in creation that was manifest within them. Cosmic statement in and of itself, but this differential is made, as the commentator points out, because the good and evil inclinations aren't present until after birth. So we would like to assume, knowing from Torah's description of their character, that perhaps we could assign Esau in the womb to being symbolic of the evil inclinations, since his character is focused on Gashmios, material concerns, and likewise say that Jacob represented the good inclination because of his focus on spiritual concerns, yet this is not the case, and only something that became clear later after their birth. And of course, every human being has both the good and the evil inclinations, so we have our own struggle within ourselves, within our soul, within our conscience, and we want to side on the influence of our Yetzer Tov, our good inclination, compelling us to do what's right, regardless of the Yetzer Hara, the bad inclination working against that. We also find in the Tanya that if we follow our good inclination, then we'll be influenced from the side of holiness, that Kedusha will come into our lives, and we'll also be more spiritually sensitive to that holiness around us, especially on Shabbat. Whereas if we give in to our evil inclination, God forbid, and sin, that opens us up to the influence of the Sitra Achara, literally other side, as in the other side of holiness, opposite to God's will and holy realm. And so God forbid, if we sin, we become empowered, so to speak. Well, that's not really the best way to think of it. We become disempowered by our sin, but we receive negative energy from the Sitra Achara. So we don't want to go there. We see the characters of both Esau and Jacob being described. Jacob is an Ish Tam, which can be translated as a pure man, whereas Esau is described as a man of the field. And so because Hashem willed, and specifically told Rebekah how the future was meant to be in terms of who would inherit the patriarchy, the legacy of Abraham, it would be the younger. And since Jacob was born second, he was the younger, but he would receive the birthright and blessings. And so we find immediately after the birth described when Esau comes in from the field famished, and Jacob is simmering a stew. I like to think that maybe he was simmering cholent, but close enough. Commentary says he was simmering lentil stew. And Esau was so famished he was willing to sell his birthright for that pot of stew. And we might think Jacob was unfair in doing so, and ask what motivated him. And perhaps this was already Hashem working through him to make it clear that only the next patriarch would be one who would best represent the character and legacy of Abraham as passed through to Isaac, and as we'll see, to Jacob. Interesting to know about Abraham's character and his wisdom. His commentary on the wells that Isaac redug. These wells had been stopped up by the Philistines. And so Isaac redug the wells of his father Abraham. And symbolically, this represents tapping into spiritual wisdom. And that is the wisdom that we'd like to understand as also being passed on to Jacob through Isaac. We do know that MS truth is associated with Jacob, and God's wisdom needs a vessel to contain it. So ultimately, we also want to prepare ourselves and purify ourselves as a vessel to also contain God's wisdom, and drink only from the wells of wisdom that Hashem has provided, as he mentions in Isaiah 12:3, concerning the wells of salvation. We're not to go to other sources, like our ancestors did during the time of the prophets, who instead of seeking the source of wisdom, Hashem, they sought out broken cisterns, broken wells and channels and sources that were other than the main source. And life today is very tempting, and we don't want to go astray and seek out wisdom from other sources and end up being only absorbed with secular wisdom and leaving God out of the equation. God forbid. So one of the main themes that we see as well regarding the character of Esau and Jacob, this manifests in the inheritance that Isaac is about to give to Esau. And Rachel learns of this. She learns that Isaac is sending Esau out into the field to catch his favorite game and cook it, prepare it the way that he likes. And then when his soul is satisfied with this meal, he attempts to bless Esau. So because Hashem told Rebekah early on that Esau would not be receiving the blessing, and that ultimately the older, that is Esau and his descendants, would be serving the younger, that is Jacob and his descendants, she took it upon herself to make sure this would be put into effect. And she has Jacob, as most people know the story, disguise himself as Esau by putting on goat skins and bringing in a meal prepared just the way his father likes it. And so he receives the blessing that, although on one level Isaac intended for Esau, it was, as Hashem made clear, supposed to go to Jacob. And we see a very interesting commentary on Isaac's experience when, after Jacob has received the blessing, well, of course he didn't know who Jacob was, that he was really Jacob pretending to be Esau. Later Esau comes in for the blessing, and Isaac is so shocked and surprised, he's trembling, and asks, "Who are you?" And he explains, "I'm Esau, your son." In that moment, when Isaac realizes what happened, the commentary explains why he trembled as well. Because it's as if the earth opened up and he saw Gehenna. Okay, so, and that is the association that's made with Esau's presence. Whereas previously, when Jacob had showed up, even though Isaac couldn't see his son, he smelled the goat skins and said, it smells like the field. And a commentary says it smelled like the fields in Gan Eden. And so that experience is in contrast to when Esau showed up and Isaac trembled and saw Gehenna before him. So I think it is on that level, on that spiritual moment, that epiphany, you realize Jacob was meant to have the blessing, and he gave another blessing to Esau as well. But Jacob was meant to have the spiritual blessings. You see another commentary on what the struggle was about when they were still in the womb, where it's said by one commentator that they were struggling for this world and the next world. Olam hazeh and Olam haba. And predominantly because of Esau's character, he was more inclined to receive an inheritance that had to do with this world, material concerns, whereas Jacob is focused on Olam haba, the next world, which are the spiritual blessings that we all look forward to by following our good inclination and reaching out to Hashem for his support in following our godly soul. Shalom Aleichem.